Hi, I'm going to do a short video demonstration on how to create form with oil paint. And we're going to use this photo reference of an apple. And I'm going to start out with just a quick review of vocabulary because I think it will be useful for our goal of creating form. And as you know, the word shape refers to a two-dimensional object. An area, right? So if we took a pencil and drew around the silhouette of this apple, we would end up with an oval kind of shape. And this is a shape. Correct? Another area. Whereas form, which is our subject today, refers to three-dimensionality. So if I add some internal lines to this shape, like that, we get this sense of a form developing, but it's just a skeleton. We don't know if it's coming or going or where it is in space. So what's required for that information is value. And as you know from drawing, value is the relative lightness or darkness of areas of an image. If we add value to this shape, such as I make this a dark plane, and I make this a medium value, we get the sense of a solid object emerging. So value is key to what we're doing today. And that's value as opposed to chroma or hue, such as the redness of the apple or the yellow greenness of some of its spots or the blackness of the background. So we're going to use three basic hues which have correspondences to the value range. We have a white, or something that's acting as white. It's actually a combination of titanium and yellow, ochre, pale. It's called a classical white. Our mid-range value is simply burnt sienna, and our dark is burnt umber. And the combination of those three tones are going to give us all the volume and rotundity of that apple that we need. So let's get started. First, a simple sketch. Using a narrow brush, you can use a pencil or a charcoal, but you can dig right in with your brush as well. You just want to simply lay out this apple. I'm using a small 5x7 canvas. Doesn't have to be exact because we are going to paint over and these lines will get absorbed into the painting. And I just used the straight burnt umber for that. And you want to start from the darker values and move to the lighter values. So obviously the darkest value in our image is the background. I'm going to use straight burnt umber and lay it in very simply with slightly thinned for flow, touching the edges of my drawing. And I'm using a fairly big brush. Now, as you can see, the shadow side of this apple is nearly as dark as the background, as is the cast shadow. So while I still have my brush loaded with that dark, I'm going to go ahead and lay that in Now the photo as you see it in this recording is going to be slightly different than what I'm seeing. Okay. Now the tabletop is the next darkest value. I'm going to use the burnt umber and just put a little bit of my mixed white in it. It's a very close. There's not a high contrast between the two. First, I'm paying attention to the way the light creeps around the backside of that apple a little bit. Little tiny bit of thinner for flow. As always with your oil paintings, we're going to be working from thin to thick, or fat to lean, as they say. Sorry, lean to fat. Fat meaning the less thinner you have, right? So this value needs to be just a bit lighter than what I've laid in. I can tell, adding a little more white as I go, but it's very close to that background. And as I say, it creeps around the edge. Now I can always go back in with my burnt umber to make that more a distinct contrast, right? Just so you can see it better. I can see it pretty well, the contrast from where I am. Okay. So now working into the apple. I'm going to use the burnt sienna, and in its saturation, it's nearly as dark as the burnt umber. So I'm going to add a tiny bit of white, little thinner for flow, and I'm going to lay in the mid-range tone, the mid value or the half tone of the apple. Now this photograph, by and large, it's a pretty dark photograph. It's a lot of shadow, black background. And I'm going to keep adding white as I move into the lighter highlights of the apple. Capturing a value map as I go. Okay, with a smaller brush, we can get some of those details at the top, that ellipse. So I'm moving back to some darker values at this point, because I'm using that smaller brush. The dark side of the stem. Need an even smaller brush. That kind of yellow-green glow. So using some light. And at this point, I'm just going back and forth between dark and light for the details. So this is forming what's called an underpainting. It's not representing the actual colors or the colors that will be the final colors of the painting. It is, you're going to get tired of me saying this, it's a value map. Very quickly done. And in classical underpainting, now I'm just cleaning up the shadow here. Classical underpainting, the value map is pretty detailed and final. And it would look something like this with much more detail. It would be allowed to dry completely. And then an overpainting with some transparencies, taking advantage of all oil paint has to offer, all the colors and the special effects of the reflective highlights, like that large reflection on this apple. So this underpainting is not going to have that in it in all its glory, but it will be alluded to. Okay, so if you like a blended approach, just wipe off your brush with paper towel. Don't dip it in thinner, and very softly drag one value into the next. And how much blending you use is a matter of style. I want to soften that up to make it nice and round. It's not necessary. You can just let the paint sit there. Or you can blend it in a little more. It's up to you. Okay, so there is a basic value map you have to work with. And after it dries, as I said, we can go back and put some color on, and that would be the subject of another demonstration. Thank you.